So we are in the book of James, and I had planned on teaching on James chapter 3. But then the shooting in Texas happened, and it really has been bothering me for a whole lot of reasons. And so I wrote down my thoughts on that, and then I thought I should preach on it, which made me change the text to James chapter 4. So let me read this to you. Chapter 4, verse 1. What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? You desire, but you don't have, so you kill. You covet, but you can't get what you want, so you quarrel and fight. You don't have because you don't ask God. And when you do ask, you don't receive because you ask with the wrong motives, so that you can spend what you get on yourself. Now, to me, this passage covers everything about the history of humanity. It's what is in us that's the problem, our own selfish desires, and we fight for what we want, wanting, fighting to get. And that covers everything from war to family squabbles to conflict in the workplace. James goes on, verses 4 to 6. He basically says, you will never fix this problem by worldly means. Instead, he says, God is longing for the Holy Spirit in you to do its work. So he says over here, God opposes the proud. God opposes those who think they can fix the world by their own worldly means, yet he lifts up the humble, those who are humble enough to allow the Spirit to do its work through them. The next thing that James writes is what to do. He says, submit to God. He says, resist the devil. If you resist the devil, he will flee from you. Draw near to God, God draws near to you. Grieve, wash yourself, be sad about what you see in yourself, humble yourself. This is so huge. Also, don't slander other believers. Unity among believers is how unbelievers come to see that Jesus is real. He said, don't break the one another's of the Bible, one another's among Christians. Now, 4 questions, and then we'll see how James applies. Question number 1. Where was God in Robb Elementary School during this shooting? Well, I think the Bible gives a very clear, unequivocal answer that you can't miss. God was right there with every one of those children. He was taking every one of those children individually and personally into his arms, saving them from death. Jesus said very interestingly, you will never taste death, nor will you see death. And my understanding of the Bible is that God took them into himself, surrounded them with his light and piercing love and care and joy, and that each one of them are able to say right now to their parents from heaven, if they could say this, it's okay. We're okay. God rescued me. We are happy. We have never been happier in our lives. Mom, Dad, I can't wait to see you. It's okay. It's okay. You can trust God in this. So that's where God was, taking care of each of those children and those 2 teachers. But there's a second question. What did God do about justice? What did he do about the perpetrator? What did he do about the evil that was committed? Well, the Bible has this picture of Jesus sitting on a throne as a lamb bleeding. That's a picture of the eternally crucified Jesus. He's also on the throne, ruling, resurrected. We've got an eternally crucified Jesus, an eternally resurrected Jesus, and that crucified Jesus is still taking on all of the evil in the world into himself, every part and parcel of it, absorbing it, killing it, taking it straight to the pits of hell, leaving it there and rising up. And so my view is it's not my view, it's the Bible's view, that the principalities and powers of this dark world, that aspect of Satan, the demonic powers that had hold of this 18-year-old man with that gun, um, Jesus took that evil onto himself, and that man has died. He was shot. And as he was facing God, I can see him having an opportunity with God to be saved, having been set free from the evil that possessed him. Does not the Bible say in uh, Romans 4:5, I think it is, God, Christ died for whom? Good people? He died for the ungodly. Hard as that is to hear, that is what Jesus has done. He's come to save and rescue those who are lost. Question 3. Why didn't God just intervene? Could he not just have stopped the whole thing? Well, yes, of course he could. He could have snapped his fingers and stopped it from happening. And yes, sometimes God specifically intervenes in certain people's lives, and it seems like not others, to save them in this life. And that's a mystery. I can't explain that. To me, the bigger mystery is, why isn't more evil perpetrated on this planet? Why don't more bad things happen to good people? James speaks to this. He says that if we really look into ourselves, why is all this evil in existence? When we really honestly look into our own hearts and see what's there, we won't like what we see. We see a whole lot of selfishness, a whole lot of things I could have done but didn't, a whole lot of words that come out from an impure part of me that I don't like to face. And on it goes. Now, you take all of that that's in you and in me, multiply it by almost 8 billion, the number of people on planet Earth. That is a lot of sin and evil. And we can understand why so much bad happens on planet Earth. But, you ask, couldn't God have stopped it? He's God, right? Well, my answer to that is, I think the Bible's answer. What good would that do? God could intervene, suddenly remove all evil, remove all sin, and fix things that way. But what good would that do? It wouldn't change us. We would be robbed of the image of God. And the image of God, if anything, is freedom. And would rob us of being able to love. The only way we can love is to freely choose to love. If we can't freely choose to love, then love is no longer love. We might have an existence if God were to do that, but we wouldn't have life. We wouldn't be able to grow into the fullness of Jesus Christ. We would lose our purpose. Our purpose is to be God's partners in healing and building a flourishing world. And we would also be robbed of our humanity. If God just snapped his fingers and healed everything like that, we might end up some parody of a human being, like in the Truman Show, or a Stepford wife robot type person. But that wouldn't be, we would no longer be humanity. Instead, what God does is he rescues the victims, just like I described, with each of those children. And he leaves the rest of us here to do what he does on planet Earth, which is to heal. God taking the horrors and injustices of the world onto himself. And he is expecting us, who are left on planet Earth, to do the same thing. Right now, God is comforting all of those who are grieving in that little town of Uvalde through people. He's using human beings to do it. 2 Corinthians 1:4 says, comfort those with the comfort you have received from God. I came to Christ through a divorce. terrible pain. So I find my way into a singles ministry. And all these people started talking to me about their pain. I didn't know what to do about their pain. I just had my pain. But I found that as I listened to their pain, God's Spirit speaking through my pain to their pain without me doing anything other than listening somehow brought healing to them. Not only that, we in the singles ministry knew that it's not just enough to help ourselves, we have to also prevent the pain that's inflicted through divorce. So we have all kinds of groups and seminars and teachings and mailings trying to do our best to help the world around us in some way avoid the pain that we have faced. So, what is God doing right now? He is recruiting you to be on his team, on his healing team. That's the purpose for which you and I were born. It's the Genesis purpose given in Genesis 1:28. Our job is to be God's partners in building a flourishing, vibrant world. And now that we are in a life-taking world, we need to be a life-giving partner with God in faith, in absorbing and healing these problems we have in the world. And we can't do it, as James says, through our pride. We can fix it through laws and all that. Yes, laws matter. And worldly means we have to do it through the Spirit, which heals us on the inside and which channels God to others. I think about these recent years, the mask debate, how the unbelieving world must look at Christians, some of whom say, wear masks. It's about caring for the other guy. And other Christians say, take off those masks and at each other like this. And non-Christians must look at Christians and think they're crazy. I don't see anything of Jesus in them. I don't want anything to do with that. Or with guns. Imagine what non-believers see when they see a sign, pro-God, pro-life, pro-guns. An unbeliever looks at it and says, pro-guns, pro-life. These people must be crazy. And they're on other sides. Christians against Christians like this. Same thing with divorce, abortion like this. And God's power and God's love and God's grace are blocked. When we use worldly means, slandering one another, and the unbelieving world only sees a caricature of Christianity, not the real thing. Well, there's a famous rabbinic saying in the Jewish Talmud, and it is this: if you save one life, you've saved the world. I like that because I think it's true. Let me paraphrase it for you. If you and I, as partners of God's healing team for planet Earth, reveal Jesus to one person, you have revealed him to the world. If I look in the mirror and know what's in me, all the stuff that James wrote in chapter 4, and I see what's wrong with me is what's wrong with the world, now I've identified the problem. And I can begin by repenting from my sanctimony, my judging others, my blaming, my slander of others, my believing and saying that it's everybody else's fault but me. Others, if I slander others, especially other Christians, I have blasphemed God himself. And then I can seek to be more like Jesus. Full of John 1:14. This is a great verse. God came to earth as Jesus, full of what? Grace and truth. Grace and truth. Grace and truth. Now, of course, truth matters, but truth without grace is not truth. Truth without love and grace is not God's truth. It can create laws, it can win arguments on the face of them, winning battles but losing the war. But without the grace, truth will never address the real problem, which is in here. And so, in your little world, among the people God has put you among, can you accept God's purpose for you and for me, which is to be the kind of person who, yes, speaks the truth, but that truth is so covered and filled and permeated with God's grace and love that when others think about you, when they think to themselves, wow, that person who's wow on the other side of the spectrum of what he believes from what I am, he or she likes me, respects me. That person, she or he, actually listened to what I said. And I think he wanted to understand and really care about what I think, even though we differ so much. And that opens the door for the person you're with to perhaps say at some point, there's something different there. Maybe this Jesus that he or she follows might be real. So if we do that, if that's our goal, looking here first, getting right with God here first, and then seeking to be a truth teller in love, then, and this is God's end game, really. Ephesians 3:15, then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves, and blown here and there by every wind of teaching, and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become, in every respect, the mature body of Him who is the head, that is Christ. That's God's end game. And that's what heals the world. So, in each act of grace-filled truth that you express in any encounter with any individual, you will have been part of saving the world. God bless you. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.